Hi, my name is Jennifer Hancock. I am the founder of Humanist Learning Systems and the author of several books about humanism. And today I want to talk to you about it's not about you. It's really not. All right. I do a lot of coaching and counseling, and I also do trainings on bullying and harassment in the workplace. And I also do programs for younger people, teens and young adults. And one of the topics that keeps coming up, and one of the problems that people keep having in their interpersonal relationships, is that they think it's about them, and it's really not, right? The world doesn't revolve around you. If you're going to deal with someone, it's actually better to try and deal with them where they are, not where you assume them to be. Reality-based approaches to problem solving include reality-based approaches to other people, and other people are not you. They don't want the same things as you. They're not responding to the same things you are, and so it's best to meet them where they really are rather than making assumptions and then screwing everything up. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about right now. First thing, I have a chapter in my book, The Humanist Approach to Happiness, called this, The World Doesn't Revolve Around You. And I actually have a chapter in my Planning for Personal Success program that does this too. The world doesn't revolve around you. If you think the world revolves around you, you are wrong. Completely, totally wrong. All right, the world doesn't revolve around you. Now, it seems like it does because you're in your own head, and you're in your own head. Everything you experience is through your own lens, whether, that's the only frame of reference you have, is how you experience things. You're not physically capable of experiencing life as a bee, or as a dog, or as your child, or as your parent. You only know your experience, and you can only interpret things through your experience, and that's real for you. The problem is it's not real for other people. All right. Everybody's world revolves around themselves. So my world revolves around me and my experiences and how I interact with everybody else. My son's experiences through his world revolves around him. My husband's life revolves around him. They both have lives that don't have anything to do with me, and we intersect in the family, right? So understanding that their world isn't about you except as how you impact them helps you take a step back when interpersonal relationships are going a little bit wrong, right? A lot of times we make assumptions about what someone else is thinking and feeling, and we ascribe motivation to them that may or may not be there because we know if it was us, this is how we would be responding. But they're not us, they're them. And they might not be responding to what you would respond to because they have a whole different set of life experiences. People who have been assaulted and abused or beaten up, they might have PTSD and they might respond to very normal triggers in a way that you would not expect because of their trauma. And unless you've had that trauma, you wouldn't even recognize it. All right, so when people are acting weird around you or in a way that doesn't make sense to you, understand that their behavior makes sense to them in the framework in which they have experienced life. The other thing that can happen to cause people to behave a little weird is, I know I have low blood sugar problems. If my blood sugar's low, I get cranky. And that's not who I normally am. But when I'm hungry, it's absolutely who I become. So don't assume other people's behavior is about you. All right, if they're being cranky with you, you might have done something to make them upset, but it's just as likely you didn't do anything. Like if someone's cutting you off on the freeway, it's not because they're trying to piss you off. They're trying to get to where they're going, and you're not even on their radar. Right? They're impacting you. It doesn't mean that their behavior isn't impacting you. It's just that you might not be the cause of their behavior. And understanding that allows you to take a step back, and instead of responding as if it's all about you and what you need, you can step back and say, this wasn't about me, and I can emotionally distance myself from that. And that does take practice. I know a lot of people, they say, how do you do it? I'm like, practice. Like, when I find myself getting upset, I remind myself it's not about me. Let me give you an example. I'm one of those crazy people who sings along at the supermarket to the music as I'm going down the aisle. I figure I'm here anyway. The music is kind of good. If it's kind of good, I'm going to sing along because that's what I do. And one time I was walking down an aisle and a man came up to me and said, "You sing horribly." I was crushed. Like, oh my gosh, I sing horribly. And then I started thinking, wait a second. When I first moved to Florida, one of my jobs was to be in an Andrew Sisters sound-alike act. I was the second soprano. I have a very good voice. I used to get paid $150 an hour to sing. Right? I sing quite well. And then I started thinking, what is wrong with this person that they went up to a complete stranger in a supermarket who was clearly having a good day and was in a good mood and ruined it? What sort of person goes up to a complete stranger and ruins their good mood? I have no idea, all right? I don't know why that man did that, but I'm very, very sure it had nothing to do with me. Because I might have been annoying people, but most people are happy when I'm singing, and I don't sing loud, I don't like belt it out. I'm just kind of grooving and dancing along and occasionally singing the chorus, right? This guy there's something wrong with this guy. I don't know what it is. Maybe he lost his job. Maybe he lost a parent. Maybe he was just in a really bad mood and just couldn't tolerate it in that moment. So I impacted him, but his behavior towards me wasn't really about me, even though it impacted me. All right? And being able to distance myself from that allowed me to not take it personally, something that wasn't really about me personally. Okay? So that helps you get into a better frame of mind. It helps you activate your compassion for this other person. You might not be able to fix what's going wrong in their lives, but it allows you to not respond in anger and frustration and fear, which is how a lot of us respond when we're attacked or when we feel like we're being attacked. And anger and fear, they're not rational emotions. They do not help you think through what an ideal response to whatever is going on will be. So it's very, very helpful when someone's kind of doing that to step back and say their behavior is about them. They're responding to something. It might be about me, it might not be about me. I'm going to think about it from what their perspective would be instead of just responding from my perspective. And that really does go a long way to help fix interpersonal problems. The next thing has to do with leadership and management and how you lead other people. I do online education, right? My company, Humanist Learning System, has a variety of online programs on everything from humanistic business management to dealing with anger, to meditation, to humanistic management and harassment in the workplace and change management, things like that. And what I have to be aware of when I create my programs is it's not necessarily what I want to teach. It's what people want to learn from me and how they want to learn it from me. So it's not what I might have things that I want to teach, but if no one wants to learn them, I'm not teaching anybody anything. So knowing what my customers want helps me get them the content that they're looking for and that they need. And what they need is different from what I need. I'm in a different place in my life than what my customers are. I'm dealing with different things than my customers might be dealing with. So listening to them and letting them drive what it is I still teach the topics I'm interested in, but I'm delivering it in a context that makes sense for them so that they're willing to listen and to learn. There's also the question of how they want to learn it. I do not like listening to people talk on the radio. I cannot do a podcast. I mean, I do podcasts, but I don't listen to podcasts because it just really makes me agitated. Some people love listening. I have friends that's how they want to learn things, is by audiobook. Some people really like to sit down with a book and read. Other people want a video. Right? And why should I tell them that they should learn the way I want them to learn? I should be giving them the content in the way they want to learn. So what is it that they want to learn? How do they want to learn it? That makes it about them and not about me. And if you're a manager and you're thinking about how do I help my team come around to what I need them to do, you might want to think not in terms of what you need to do, but about what it is they're responding to, why they're responding to it, what is important to them in their positions, and then work with them to understand that the thing you would like them to do is actually in their best interest and helps them achieve their other objectives, whatever those other objectives are. All right, so a lot of times leaders make the mistake. They think, well, I'm going to dictate what needs to happen and people are to do it. But that's not really what a good leader does. A good leader says, okay, we have this problem that needs to be solved. I have all these people who might be able to help. How do I best mobilize them to do that? And to do that, I need to understand what they're responding to and what they want to work on so that I can help them be as effective as possible towards the collective project, whatever that is. All right. Now, the third thing is that we need to allow people to be individuals, flaws and all. None of us are perfect. And a lot of times what we do is when we're having a problem with someone, it's because they didn't live up to our expectations for them. They weren't perfect. They screwed up something, and that negatively impacted us. And that happens all the time. But a good manager is going to look at that and accept that their employees are not going to be perfect 100% of the time. That's an unrealistic expectation. So how can we adjust things so that, when people make a mistake, instead of punishing them for it, which is rarely productive, and I have all sorts of courses on the science of this, it doesn't work. How can we help them not make a mistake in the future? Because at the end of the day, all business is about solving problems, right? We're in business to solve problems. And even in our personal lives, we spend all our time solving problems. And if someone's caused a problem for us, it might feel emotionally satisfying to blame them for it, but it's much more productive to think about how you fix it. And if you need their help fixing this, and oftentimes we do, then it's in your best interest to work with them to get the problem solved than to yell at them and scream at them and say, you made this a mess, you fix it, right? No one likes it when that happens to them, especially when it's an honest mistake. And people are more likely to work with you to fix it if you treat them as a collaborative thing, right? No one wakes up and says, oh, I'm going to be horrible today. Unless you're an evil genius, that's not what you wake up thinking. All right, so be compassionate with yourself for the flaws for your flaws and the mistakes you make, and extend that compassion to other people when they make mistakes. That doesn't mean the mistakes are okay. It doesn't mean we don't fix the mistakes. We do. It's just the attitude with which you approach those problems is different when you're being compassionate than when you're being angry. And the attitude really does impact how successful you're going to be at solving that problem with this other person. So it might feel self-righteous to be angry, but it doesn't necessarily help you solve your problem. And at the end of the day, I would rather solve my problem in a way that makes everybody feel good than be right and still have my problem not fixed. And that's often what your choice is. So the world doesn't revolve around you. It's not about you. Meet people where they are instead of where you expect and need them to be. If you want to learn more about this, there's a couple of programs that do this. I would recommend my Living Made Simpler course because it's a 6-hour course, and I do spend like a full hour on compassion and on another full hour on coping. So see you there.